Welcome, everybody, to yet another Blue Jay Center podcast brought to you by the Sick Podcast Network. And you'd think over like 2 days there wouldn't be a whole lot to talk about, but we found some doozies. Let's get this thing started.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to the Sick Podcast. Blue Jays Center.
Bautista drives it deep left field. Gone!
The sickest Toronto Blue Jays podcast. It's gonna be sick.
Well, Rob, here we are, buddy. And you
Get it.
heard the Bautista call again. And I have to bring this up because the Jays tweeted it out 4 hours ago that Jose and Edwin tomorrow, 8 a.m. J Shop outside Rogers Center.
Oh, wow.
Autographs and stuff like that. 8 a.m. tomorrow at Rogers Center. So go check it out. It's probably going to be absolute pandemonium on a Friday morning. But yeah, I thought that was pretty cool to bring up. Now, the next thing we got to talk about, and it just got dropped like
Fresh
10,
off the
15
press
minutes ago. It's about damn time. These City Connect jerseys are here. And Rob, we talked about it like a couple days ago. And I was like, damn, looked like we made this stuff in paint. Like it looked ugly. And I'm like, this looks not great. But it's kind of growing on me a little.
I mean, I was just on Twitter, like literally right during my lunch break at work today, and I saw a photoshopped image of Vlad. And obviously it wasn't a real image with him playing with the uniform. And I'll be honest, like seeing them at first glance, I'll be honest, like we talked about it last show. We were a little underwhelmed, but seeing Vlad playing it, just that photoshopped image, I don't know, like kind of like you, kind of grew on me a bit. And like when we talked about it right before the show, you mentioned how the same thing for you, and it was kind of unfortunate because I wanted to have an opposing take. But yeah, no, I would bet because we turned the tide on them. I think a lot of Jays fans, now that they're officially out and they've gotten to see some players wearing them, I would like to think that maybe a lot of other fans have kind of grown to appreciate them a bit. I know I have.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I look at them right now as we're seeing the picture here, and it's like, it looks clean. I don't know what it was, but seeing it on the guys rather than on a hanger, it looked sloppy and it looked like it was just fired together. And I'm like, that looks gross. But now I don't know. It just looks clean. The Toronto skyline, the hats, I hated them initially, and I'm like, it's kind of clean. I don't know. I like the skyline bit. You can see Rogers Center kind of right where the button is there, right in the middle of the jersey. I think it's pretty cool, man. I think it's great. But you know what? I think that's enough jersey talk. We had to touch on it a little bit because it's been just talked about ad nauseum, and everyone's
still they still have a knockoff U of T logo though, if we're being honest.
Yeah, I agreed. I think it goes off of the Toronto logo as well, like the city of Toronto flag. I had to pull this thing up because I had to try and figure it out, but it's somewhat like this.
Right. For the viewing audience, you can see it there.
Yeah, you can check it out and check out the YouTube page if you want to have a look at what the hell I was just showing you. But yeah, I thought that was now that I saw that a little bit more, I'm like, okay, I kind of understand it. But yeah, the U of T stuff, I'm like, but the jerseys are still nice. The hats still questionable, but the jerseys for me look fantastic.
No, absolutely. I think for me, I'm not exactly a big jersey guy. Like the jersey that I rock the most is the one that they gave out at the game a couple years ago, the Jose Barrios one. But I could definitely see myself copping one of these for sure. I mean, it's definitely clean. At first, I didn't like the dark color, the background color, but now seeing it again, I feel like I've had a change of heart. I think that looks pretty neat, in my opinion. So, not gonna lie, I've done a bit of a 180. You might call me a flip flopper, but hey, it's grown on me. The last 48 hours, 72, whatever it's been, I'm with it.
Well, if you're a flip flopper, I guess I am too in this sense. Just I don't know, Rob. And this is the weird part about this is like I would love to cop a jersey, but are they? Because I saw the Nike logo, I'm like, are they the I guess the new jerseys coming into this season, those crappy ones that no one wanted to buy?
Oh, I'm
like,
not
that's
sure.
What I'm like.
They did a revamp on that one.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
That's why I got to figure that out before I think about that. And also who the hell I got in the back, because the way this core is, there might be a lot of change coming.
For sure. Yeah, I was about to mention that just now. Like, who are we going to cop? Who's going to be here in 2 years? And right now, I'm not sure there's a definitive answer. I guess maybe Jose Barrios, but even then.
That's the only one, really. Or David Schneider, maybe? I don't know. But let's get to the ballpark now and the field. And man, I don't know about you, but that was the most underwhelming sweep of a series I've ever felt. They swept the White Sox. They allowed a total of what? 5 runs in the entire series. They won it pretty single-handedly and easily. But let's be real. They should have done that. I mean,
Mhm.
seeing the pitching performances. Hell, we thought seeing Mike Clevenger, okay, let's see how you face a dude in AAA with a 5 ERA instead. It's like, but they got it on a platter. You didn't have to face Eric Fedde. You didn't have to face Garrett Crochet, who shut you down the last time.
Oh, yeah.
What what do you take away, if anything, from that series?
I take away that the Blue Jays are better than the White
Oh,
Sox.
there you go.
We
Hot
know
take.
that after playing them the last 9 days 6 times. Look, the Blue Jays credit you as underwhelming as they may have been, you only scored 2 runs against Chris Flexen, who last came in yesterday with an ERA well over 5. At the end of the day, they all matter, they all count. All the wins you can get, you can take them. And look, we mentioned how you needed to go 9-4 in this 13-game stretch against the bad teams, despite that awful weekend in Detroit last weekend.
Oh, yeah.
That's still in play. That's still in play. If you sweep Pittsburgh, and we'll talk about that series coming up, 9-4, you're 500 heading into a new month. You've gotten a lot of much better offensive performances. We'll talk about that. I think you're feeling okay. So maybe it's underwhelming. And yes, I think in terms of redeemable stuff, nothing to really take away. You beat the worst team in baseball. The White Sox are the worst team in baseball,
Oh, yeah.
regardless of what Pablo Lopez has to think and has to say. But yeah, you beat a bad team. You did what you're supposed to do. Now let's see how you do it against another team. Because remember, Pricey, since April 20th, they still haven't beaten a non-White Sox team in a series. So it's the chickens will come to roost, and we'll find out very shortly if this was just a mirage against a bad team or if there's any somewhat legitimate takeaways from the last 6 games against the White Sox specifically.
Yeah, I mean, God, they haven't won a series against a non-White Sox team since they
Yep,
won 2 or
Padres,
3 in San Diego. That's
Padres in April,
it's kinda
April
wild to even
20th.
think about. And you brought up Detroit, Rob. It's just nightmare fuel for us because we were there for both the
Or right
Saturday and the
there, man.
Sunday game, the snooze fest 2-1 game where a 2-run shot in the first was all that was needed. And then I'm not even gonna speak about Sunday. The only
Sunday.
good part about the weekend was that free Italian sausage, baby. I mean,
Oh,
my
I think
goodness.
America Park.
Oh, that
Yeah.
was great.
Yeah.
Card wouldn't tap, and she's like, "Hey, if this doesn't tap this time, I'll give it to you for free." And it didn't for some reason, it
Not
didn't
gonna lie,
again.
man.
Free food.
Not gonna lie, as many bad experiences I've had at Comerica Park, all those losses, like Comerica will always have a special place in my heart. Like I've been to Dodger Stadium, I've been to Wrigley, I've been to
Yeah.
Petco, I've been to Fenway, but something about Comerica, I don't know. It's just maybe it's just me, but I've been there so many times that no matter what, no matter how bad the Jays play, when I go there, it'll always have a special place in my
Yeah, we'll
heart. And for
reiterate
you, in
that.
this
4 and
case,
12.
you got
Yeah.
some free food.
Yeah. Well, you got
What's
4
that?
and 12, 4 and 12 for you, but we'll
4 and
reiterate
12,
that
4
again
and
next week.
4 and
Yeah.
12. Yeah.
Anyways,
Oh yeah, that's facts.
the White Sox. Yeah, you did your job. Okay. I mean, I don't care. Let me rephrase that. I cared that they won all 3 games because if they didn't, I think we'd just be going absolute
Right.
bananas. Um, but you did your job. You
Yeah.
did what you were
Five and
supposed
one.
to do,
Five and
and
one
that's
against them.
exactly.
Yeah.
5 and 1, you did your job against that
Yep.
crap team,
Yeah. Yep.
and
Absolutely.
the big takeaway I have from it is that David Schneider is elite.
Yes.
I mean,
Nasty.
I understand you're going off of the White Sox. I understand that. We've now seen these numbers of
Yeah.
David Schneider over the past however many games it was and the company that he's with,
Right.
and he's being put in tough situations. Like, for God's sakes, he's your leadoff hitter now. And at moments
Yeah.
last year, he was your cleanup guy. And watching him in that White Sox series just hit to all fields, hit for power, have a great eye at the plate, and not change his approach. It's refreshing. It really is.
I'm not sure if you've seen the stat that he flashed on Sports, and I believe it was after it might have been after the second game, the game where he had 3 hits in that
Yeah,
game, got on base 4 times.
yeah,
He has the highest OPS in all of baseball since getting called up last August. And that's obviously, it's not like there are guys who have more plate appearances, so like
sure.
maybe there's a sample size element to it. But at the end of the day, it's still I think he's got over 310 plate appearances now at the big leagues with an
Yeah,
OPS of 900, right around 900. I'll get the number for you in just a moment. An OPS plus over 150. Like at the end of the day, you can't fluke your way into a 900 OPS over that many plate appearances. And look, is Davis Schneider a 150 OPS plus guy? Is he a 140, 130? I mean, Probably not. I don't think so. I think a 150 is a pretty damn elite.
Yeah.
But I think he's built enough equity, and like you've seen, as you mentioned there, the plate appearances that he doesn't give away any at bats. He takes his walks. Uh, he puts the ball in play. I think that there's enough redeemable talent there and evidence that he's at the very least, I think, a good above average big league hitter. I mean, and we've seen it right now. It's no longer the small sample size put in favorable matchups like he was
Mhm.
early in the
Yeah.
year. Like like you mentioned, he's legitimately their everyday leadoff hitter, regardless of who's on the mound, regardless of who they're facing, and he's answered the call time and time again. Like, no, at this
Mhm.
point, if there was any debate at all, it should all be gone. No, Davis Schneider, for the moment, is an everyday player, regardless of where you stick him, and he probably should be your leadoff hitter with the way he's been performing, no doubt about it.
Oh, yeah, and I mean, it's just not only has he been so fantastic, but the story is outstanding, right? And for any baseball fans or any young baseball players out there who think you're cooked and think you're done and let's go just go play some beer league, but you have that opportunity to take that next step. Why not? David Schneider in 2017 was a 28th round pick, 849th overall.
By the way, 28th round doesn't exist today. So like
No, it doesn't.
there's no more 20th round. He would have gone undrafted if he was drafted today,
Yeah, and who
which is
knows where we'd have
insane.
been then. It's incredible to watch Davis do his thing, and that game in particular, Rob, was the most exciting one for me. I think he had the
The
double off
the
the
the,
base of the
the
wall
Tuesday
in
game,
left,
right? Yes, the
and then he
Tuesday
had
game.
the single against I think it was Paul Fry in like the 8th or ninth inning, the single to left field, and I believe wasn't his other double to right field. Like he went
Paul Fry?
Paul Fry,
Is he still
yeah. Who did I say?
No, you said Paul Fry, but was it
Am
Paul
I
Fry? I
right?
think it was someone else. Wasn't it Tim Hill, the
Tim
lefty?
Hill. They're both
The
lefties. Whatever.
the
Yeah,
wrong
yeah.
way, yeah, the other lefty, other
Yeah,
relevant
or
lefty.
whatever. But it is what
Anyway,
it
yeah.
is. But yeah, I mean, I love the way he approaches the plate, and that has been so frustrating for Jays fans, right? Watching these guys flail at bad pitches all the time, and it's like Davis goes out there with a professional approach at all times. It's very fun to watch. Now, as
903 OPS, 153 OPS plus, and 315 plate appearances. That's insane. That's wild.
we're all kind of just waiting for the dam to break, but it just hasn't.
Like
And
I said, at this point, I think at the very least he's a good hitter.
and
He may not be. He's not going to be a 153 OPS plus guy,
no,
but at the very least, I think you can. You've gotten enough evidence to suggest, yeah, you're confident in him being a good hitter, an above
sure,
average hitter every day, in my
absolutely.
opinion, at
And,
least.
and,
Yeah,
you, and you, you give the opponents an off season to game plan against a guy like that.
yeah,
And they come back to start the season. As you mentioned, he wasn't an everyday guy to start the year,
yeah.
and he's still raking at this point. So the league adjusted, he adjusted back, and that's beautiful baseball. Now,
Absolutely.
as much as a sweep is nice, regardless of the opponent, the one very large negative leaving Chicago is Alek Manoah. Now, I
I
didn't
got
have the opportunity to watch that game last night. Um, but I was at softball and in between games, I checked my phone. I'm like, okay, the Jays are up 2-0. Good stuff. In the fourth inning, Alek Manoah must be doing pretty well. Look down, inning in 2/3. And I'm like, oh no. No, 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 no. Like that's not good. And then we hear after the game that he felt some like sort of like pinching in his elbow, left the
That's
game
not
with
good.
elbow discomfort. Um, he had an MRI today. So I'm assuming media availability before the game for John Schneider tomorrow at BP or something like that. That's when we'll probably end up hearing things. But any time when you hear elbow, a throwing
Pinching.
arm elbow, it ain't good, Rob.
No, absolutely not. And obviously, you're hoping for the best. The MRI results. I'm not sure. Has any insider tweeted any update on that? I'm not sure exactly like how it went or what it revealed. Like you mentioned, we might not hear it till tomorrow because there's an off day today. It was an off day and a travel day, so
Yeah.
all the reporters they're not around the team at the moment. Uh, Tomorrow, hopefully, we'll get some more clarity on it. But yeah, obviously, just really sucks, man. Especially considering, I mean, not only was Alek Manoah like looking good so far in the start of that game,
Mhm.
but at the same time, like this was a guy who had battled his way back, and we all know the story of how much he struggled in spring training, and obviously the disaster that last season was. And it looked like he was putting together a good, decent stretch there of good pitching, where it looked somewhat eerily similar to the guy we saw back in 2022 when he was a Cy Young finalist. Those specifically those two starts at home against good lineups, good
Mhm.
playoff caliber teams, and yeah, I mean it's just it's really tough. At this point, all we can do is offer thoughts and prayers and hopes that it's just nothing all that serious, and hopefully, anytime that Alek Manoah misses will be quick and he'll be able to recover and be back as soon as possible because he's like I mentioned, it looked like he was turning a corner there. I know that Detroit start didn't go great, but I feel like for the most part, it's been a pretty positive story so far. The way he's pitched coming from Buffalo. So
Yeah.
let's hope for all for the best at this point.
Yeah, to this point, I just got through Ben Nicholson Smith, Shai Davidi, Keegan
Yeah,
Matheson. Nothing to do with Alek Manoah, but what Shai did tweet out last night is that Alek Manoah will undergo an MRI tomorrow. He felt some discomfort in his elbow after his last outing in Detroit. We obviously know which pitch it was, really. Oh, he felt it in Detroit, but was fine during a bullpen between starts. He said he felt a pinchy sensation on his last pitch. So that was last night. So I don't know what to take from a pinchy sensation, um,
um,
but we'll wait and see. And we're all kind of just holding our breath at this point
yeah,
because we're big Alek Manoah guys because a little favoritism there.
absolutely,
But regardless
absolutely,
of that, his performance on the field and the way he performs,
yeah.
it's just it's fun to watch, and it's unfortunate because he looked like he was doing well in that start too. An inning and 2/3, 3 punch outs. It looked girl. The slider was humming in that in the early parts of that outing, and as I
Is
said before,
is it just unfortunate, Price? I've said yeah, I think you're about to go here right now. You mentioned anything that can go good for this team, it's immediately offset by
well, Toronto
something
sports, but yes,
disastrous.
yes, yes.
That's yeah, exactly, and it's right like we mentioned, Alek Manoah, finally a positive story, the one homegrown guy in this rotation that everyone loved and everyone wanted to see bounce back after a tough year last year was on his way to it, and obviously, unfortunately, this setback happened. So yeah, it just really sucks that for whatever reason, it just seems that from the moment we found out that it's a Dragons dude guy on the plane, not Shohei Ohtani, this franchise is just not nothing's kind of gone their way, unfortunately. So let's hope that at the very least we can get a marginal win, and let's hope Alek Manoah's MRI goes all right tomorrow.
Well, I think that's what I said earlier. We're all kind of just holding our breath because Toronto sports are not used to good things lasting very long. And this was going great until yesterday. So we'll see what happens. But look, Rob, let's move on now to the mailbag because we have a few questions from some of our Instagram followers. And
Yes,
and it's more or less in the sense of trading away players from the Toronto Blue Jays. As even with the sweep of the White Sox,
we're
you
still
and I
realistic.
have not wavered in the sense
No,
that you're still not.
I don't know. Hey, you win, you beat
No, Rob, don't
oh, who knows? I'm
no,
kidding.
don't do
I'm
this.
kidding. I'm
You
kidding.
beat the freaking White Sox. You beat a beer league team, all right? So that's you fine. Sure, great. You won 3 games. Now do it to the Pirates now.
Yeah,
Go for it.
absolutely.
Here you go.
Can you beat a non-White Sox team? The answer has been no the last 6 weeks.
Win a series. Not saying even sweep. Win a damn
Let's do it.
series. They haven't been able to do it. But anyways, let's get to these couple questions real quick. All right. So B Millie 9370s said, what kind of players / prospects do you think other trade candidates could warrant for Kikuchi, Turner, and KK in that sense? So I get the Kikuchi thing gives me a lot of J Hap vibes, right? Lefty, last year of his deal, that kind of thing. We talked about Turner and KK last year about, you're probably gonna get a bag of balls. You're not getting much
No,
at
you're not
all
getting
from
much.
those
No.
guys. But a guy like Yusei Kikuchi, you can talk about. I mean, what do you think,
Right.
Rob?
No, I think this is very legitimate, and obviously, like the J App comparison, he's the lefty. First of all, let's just preface. Let's just hope they get a lot more for Yusei Kikuchi than they got for J Happ. But
Yeah.
no, I think Yusei Kikuchi being a hard throwing lefty, I think that that's a guy who the teams will actually vie for. Like
Mhm.
he's a guy who you go through the majority. I mean, if not all, the postseason rotations in baseball, both in the AL and in the NL. I think Yusei Kikuchi would pitch in a postseason rotation for just about every team. And I think that coming from the left side, pitching as well as he has the velo, we mentioned how it's always been good. The stuff's always there. It just can he finally put it together? And in the last year and change, sans that last start in Detroit,
Mhm,
he's
mhm.
looked excellent. He's looked excellent. Just the guy that you have the utmost confidence in. I think that the Blue Jays can get something good for him. And obviously, the problem is that it's tough to predict. You can't really go on historical data because, as someone who studied economics, I understand that the market is what the market is at that moment. That's adjusted for inflation, regardless of when that is. You don't know how the economy is going to be booming at the time. So we'll see. I'm not sure exactly. We've seen trade deadlines be underwhelming in baseball the last 2 years, specifically because of the third wild card. There's not as many. there's not a large pool of sellers.
Mhm.
So who knows? Because there's a lot of buyers this time around. Maybe the Blue Jays being on the other end of things, being the selling team for once, maybe they'll take that to their advantage and actually make a good move and get something good for Yusei Kikuchi and Jimmy Garcia. I think those are the two guys they got to look out for.
Big
Jimmy
time.
Garcia being a hard throwing late inning reliever. Uh, it was righty that throws close to 100 and has had a phenomenal season. You think that he's going to be the cream of the crop in terms of relievers. We all know how much relievers are coveted at the trade deadline specifically. So I think those are two guys that if you're a Blue Jays fan, it's got to be more than just a few lottery tickets. It's got to be more than a Brandon Drury slash
Oof,
Billy
that would be
McKinney
great.
type. It's got to be a solid haul. And obviously, I'm not saying multiple top 100 prospects. I think that's probably unrealistic, regardless of where the market trends. But I think that the Blue Jays farm system should uptick if they execute these trades properly.
Well, it definitely should. I mean, the farm
Yeah,
system to this point, we talked about it last week, how like your top five guys are broken, basically, except for Elvis, I think, who has a couple bombs recently, but
right.
it's not great, your minor league system. And if I had to make a guess for Kikuchi and Jimmy Garcia, I'm going to lowball it just for the fact of it's a trade deadline ahead of free agency. Um, it's hard. You're not going to get a top 100 prospect. I don't think. I think if anything, you're getting like
Here's
a B and C kind of guy.
what if you package them? What if I mean you think of contending teams? Why not? Like you can
Yeah.
get a package and you can get a premium. I don't know. We'll see like what they do. Unfortunately, I hate to say it, but when you're trying to predict the price, you also have to kind of go with who's making the trade, and that's Ross Atkins, a guy
Mhm.
who historically has not done the greatest when it comes to trades. I mean, we've seen them be sellers a couple times. We saw the Marcus Stroman trade, the Aaron Sanchez trade, I mean, there was another trade in there. J Happ, like we just mentioned,
Yeah.
exactly. It's there's not a whole lot there. I mean, Marcus Stroman, you ended up getting a guy who right now has kind of become a solid pitcher for the Twins, and Simeon Woods Richardson, who you traded for Jose Barrio. So that one bit was salvaged a bit, but other than that, it's the trade history has just not been there for Ross Atkins, unfortunately. So
Yeah.
as much as you want to like predict on what the Blue Jays are going to get, it's tough to go against the track record too. So that's yeah, you got to put that out there.
Yeah. If I had to say like a top like a grade A prospect is one of MLB's top 100, I don't think you're getting that. I think you're probably getting a B and a C or two Bs for a guy like Yusei Kikuchi, because as you mentioned, like hard throwing lefty, can't go wrong with that, and he could probably come out of the bullpen if need be, as
Mhm.
well as a hard throwing lefty. So in Jimmy Garcia, he's a reliever. You're not going to get anything crazy for him. As much as he's great, as much as I love him. Remember Sungwon Oh? Remember how great he was for the Blue Jays? You
Right.
got Chad Spanberger, I believe his name was, and
And
Forrest
Forrest
Wall.
Wall. Yeah,
Like,
I remember that.
great. Again, they're all lottery tickets. They're prospects. That's why Jays fans should have been okay with trading them away at one point. But if they are sellers, you got to grab those lottery tickets. You got to grab those lottery balls and see what happens.
No,
So,
it's got to be more than just lottery tickets, though. It can't just be like who's the guy they got for like the David Phelps or like the other guy that they traded?
sure,
Oh,
but David
Daniel
Phelps,
Hudson.
doesn't have the track record,
That's what I mean. Yeah, it's
yeah,
got to be better than that, is what I'm saying. It's got to be
sure.
better. It's got to be a better return than that.
Especially with how important relievers are in this,
Exactly.
this type of
And,
baseball that it
and,
is now.
dude, and think about it like this. I would think Jimmy Garcia is going to be the cream of the crop in terms of the market. Like you think of a guy
Yeah.
like his profile, just a guy who throws hard and just has
Mhm.
has had an sensational season for the Blue Jays. He's a guy he's gonna have a legitimate All-Star case when that
Oh
time
yeah.
comes around. Yeah, so I would think that relievers we see them getting traded all the time. I would expect a pretty decent return even for a reliever. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah. No, I'm with look, I don't know what the market's gonna look like.
Yeah,
Do the Blue
we have to
Jays try
see.
and set the
We have
market?
to see.
We'll
Yeah.
see. We'll see
Yep.
moving forward. I mean, like the next question, and I'm not gonna read the guy's username because it's a little odd. Would you trade Romano? If so, to who?
Yes. I first of all, would I trade Romano? I would trade any reliever if it meant getting something good for him. Like I'm not married to any reliever. That's
Oh, you're not.
partially why I disliked the Eric Swanson Teoscar Hernandez trade so much. Which,
Yeah.
by the way, Eric Swanson got sent out. I'm not sure if that's going to make the show, but I think we just got to point that in there.
I
Chad Green back, Eric Swanson in AAA. Let's hope that he figures it out there. But yeah, no, absolutely. I think that being how volatile relievers are, I've told you many times, like on this program too. Look at where Jimmy Garcia was last year versus where he is now. Like last year, he was a guy that had like an ERA like a 5.6, and people were hoping he gets the Eric Swanson treatment. And now all of a sudden, we're talking about him as a very legitimate trade asset. Like it's crazy how much relievers flip flop. So despite Jordan Romano being an elite closer for the Blue Jays the last nearly half decade now since this season, which has been rough go of late,
Yeah.
I would absolutely trade him if the right price comes along. I would absolutely be fine trading him. Think about how we got Jordan Romano. I mean, he was
No.
homegrown Rule 5 pick. You know what I mean? Like that's a
Not
guy
only
that
that, bro, not only
yeah,
was it a Rule 5 pick, you lost him to Texas, and
yeah, and
Texas
then he
is
got
like,
returned.
Nah, we're good," and then he came
Right,
back to the Jays. It was crazy. It's
right.
crazy.
So,
But
no, absolutely. I think that's a great way to do business.
yeah,
Relievers, unfortunately, the organization itself has just not done a good job at all of just finding homegrown guys. Like I mentioned last show, they've had to go out and give up legitimate resources for relievers.
yep,
That part of it stinks because yeah, no, the way to build bullpens, you should go cheap. You should go reclamation projects. You should go internal guys that don't cost too much that you can remake. For the Blue Jays, that might be a little tougher, but I still think that if you have a chance to get a good haul for a reliever, remember Dominic Leone,
mhm,
6 years ago now, having
1
that
year
good
here.
season that you turned him into Randall Grichuk, an everyday player. I think you got to pursue that. If that deal's available, a deal like that, if you can get an everyday player for Jordan Romano and maybe something else, I think you got to seriously consider it. I would absolutely do it.
You absolutely do, and to his question, if so, to who? Anybody. Okay.
Yep.
Anybody who's got a good
I don't care if
option.
it's Baltimore. I don't care if it's the Yankees. I
Yeah.
don't care if it's in our division, man. If you can get a like, obviously now if you're dealing with Baltimore or New York, I think that you can leverage it as say like
Oh, yeah.
that's now a higher
Prices
price. It's a
go up.
higher
Yeah.
higher cost of doing business. But if you get a fair value, I don't care who you're trading with. You got to do it.
Absolutely. You absolutely do. So, because you want the most value, and if you're not going to contend, it's not like, oh, you don't want Romano or Garcia or Jimmy
Yeah.
Garcia or Yusei Kikuchi come back to burn you. No, 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 no. If you're going to suck, suck. It doesn't matter who you're losing to and how you're losing, if that's the case, right? But if you're trying to win as well as trading, we're not doing that.
No.
Let's not do
No.
that. So now that that's over, we can move to the series upcoming starting tomorrow night as the Jays come back home, take on the Pittsburgh Pirates for a 3-game weekend set. Now, let's quickly go through the pitching matchups and I'll get your thoughts.
Yes.
So, Jose Barrios goes tomorrow night in game 1 on Friday, and he's countered with Bailey Falter. Never heard of the guy, but he's gone 58 innings as an ERA of 3.5, whip of under 1. I mean, he's been great for the Pirates. The Jays players are shaking in their boots because they're seeing a guy who can actually pitch at the big league level. We'll see how
No
that
more
goes.
Nick Nastrini and Woodford or whatever that dude's name
Yeah, yeah,
was.
Jake
No,
Woodford. Yeah, yeah, sure,
yeah.
sure. And game 2, Kikuchi versus Mitch Keller. I don't need to say anything more about that. That's a 307 first pitch. You're facing a legit arm. And then the finale, if it'll pop up here, Chris Bass for the Jays, and right now it's up in
And
the air for the
TBD, right?
yeah, right up
Yeah.
in the air for
Well,
that.
we do know it's not going to be Jones or Skeens, which is huge.
No, no, and that's another reason, Rob, that we gotta find a way. At the very least, take 2 or 3 against the Pirates.
Yes.
And people say, well, your record's not about the same. Yeah, I get that. But this team has expectations. That one doesn't, or hopes. Let me put it that way, not expectations. Hopes, where the Pirates do not. So
Yeah.
2 or 3 at the least. But if they can find a way to take all 3 and get back to 500, maybe the mindset starts to change it a little bit. What do you think, Rob?
Oh, it absolutely would change because all of a sudden, here's the thing: you win three, hypothetically, this scenario. Which, by the way, very difficult to do. The Blue Jays have only swept one team all year. It happens to be the worst team in baseball. So I would bet the under that they win 3 games in this series. But let's say for argument's sake they do. All of a sudden now, 29-29, you're a 500 team. You're probably, I don't know, 3 games out of the last wild card. You're neck and neck there with all the teams. You don't have to jump a million teams. You're right there. You have a legitimate shot. I mean, theoretically, you do. I mean, obviously, we all know the team and its imperfections and the
Mhm.
the the probability that they're going to go off and continue to win after Baltimore comes in for 4 right after. I mean, that's a different story, which we'll get to should the opportunity present itself. Oh, what
Rob,
happened there,
3
buddy?
times in a row, buddy. There we are.
Are we
Oh,
good now?
oh, you're golden.
All right. Anyways, as I was saying, if they do sweep them, I would admit there would be a legitimate vibe change. You're
Yeah,
500 team.
for
You're
sure.
heading into a new month, which, by the way, the Blue Jays offense, to their credit, has been a lot better in May. You look at the last 10 days or so. it's been one of the best offenses in all of baseball, and obviously a lot of that is White Sox and even the Detroit Tigers, who are a good pitching team. Don't get me wrong; that's their strength. They've kind of built their way up the rankings. If you look at the team's rankings offensively at the end of April, they were consensus bottom five in all of baseball, just legitimately an awful offensive team. If you look at them now, after 2 months of sample, they're just subpar. They're like in the high teens range in terms of offense. So that would go to show that in May it's kind of normalized. They've been a pretty decent, averagey offense in May, which honestly that's what we were hoping for coming in. Could you be an average big league lineup with a great pitching staff? That was the key to success for this team. So yeah, I think if they were able to win all three against this Pirates series, we would definitely change our tune a bit. I still think that overall, objectively, we wouldn't go crazy and say that all of a sudden now we're changing the tide, we're
We're
a
back
buying team now, but it
as
would at least give us an element of hope. Whereas you lose 2 of 3, or God forbid you get swept, and all of a
mm,
sudden, yeah, it's done. We're all, if we're not there already, we're all throwing in the towel at that point. So I think it's huge. I think that if there's any shot at salvaging really this season, I think before you start this, gong show of a schedule with the Orioles coming to town on Monday, you gotta at least win the series, like you mentioned. I think you might even have to sweep it, to be honest with you, to really feel different. To be
yeah,
honest,
if you want to get in that positive mindset and to get Jays fans back on the we believe in this team even a little bit more, you got to sweep.
yes,
We talked about it, on Sunday when we recorded this. I actually came out Monday probably, but regardless, um,
it was Monday because Sunday we were in Detroit, so we
that's
record
right.
on Monday.
That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
Um, we talked about the schedule, and after sure you have Baltimore for 4, and then you got Oakland for 3. It's like whatever. But then after that, it's like Red Sox, Guardians, Brewers in there too, and it's even the
Mariners.
Yankees
Yeah,
once or
I,
twice,
I think I think they go to
Astros,
Milwaukee right after. Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's like all those teams in one. Like you're not getting any break, and that's
Nope.
that.
Yep.
So taking 3 against the Pirates, I'm not saying they're all the way back, but you got to do it. You're at that point where you've put yourself in this big of a hole that you have to do it
Yeah,
to even
exactly.
sniff relevance.
Which is why it's so unfortunate that they couldn't find a way to pull out one of those Detroit games, like
Oh,
one of the last three, especially that Sunday. Because think about it like this: if you win the Sunday game in Detroit, all you have to do is just win this series, which seems winnable. I mean, well, is it
sure.
sweepable? That might be tough, but it's definitely feels winnable. Like I think you should at the very least expect to take 2 out of 3. All of a sudden, if you take 2 out of 3, you're 9-4 in this stretch, which is what we wanted, which is what the goal was: 9-4 to go back to 500. All of a sudden, now it's a little more complicated. You have to win all 3, but I mean, hey, you find a way, and we're here back on Sunday on this podcast. We're singing a different tune, so what I'm saying is that it's not over yet.
There's a
I'm
question mark at the end of that, right? Yeah.
yeah, some positive vibes. Hey, gotta win.
All right.
Right,
Well,
right now, all you've proven is that you can beat the White Sox.
that's
So
it.
you still have a long ways to go. Still have a long ways to go. At this moment, you got to keep reminding yourself that.
Oh yeah. I mean, sweeping the White Sox, as I mentioned right off the top, it's like I feel no different about this team. Like, hey, watching wins is more fun than watching losses, obviously.
Let
But
me ask
facing
you though, if they do sweep Pittsburgh, will you feel somewhat materially different?
somewhat materially different, yes.
Yes.
Um,
Even if it's just marginal.
yeah, like it'll be slightly because I'm like, hey, you're back
Yeah.
to being 500. Like you're right there where it felt like you were just gonna plummet down to 10, 15 games under, and then it'll
500,
be
five
good.
hundred is a new tax bracket. I feel like it's just a new tax bracket. Like it just
Sure.
feels better. You know what I mean? As an under 500 team, it's like you have a new key card now that you're a 500 team or over.
Yeah, and as of right now, the Twins are only 6 games above, and they're in that wild card spot, right? And
Yeah,
the
that's
Red
the team you're
Sox,
chasing.
who are that first team out, they are 500. So it's
Yeah.
like, and like you look at the American League East, and I know it doesn't mean much if you're fifth or if you're third, if you're out of the division, doesn't matter. But you're like a game and a half back, a third in the division, like
Yeah.
just like that. And
No.
the Red
Yeah,
Sox
you're right.
play the Tigers; they're playing them right now, and then you
Let's
got
hope
the
Detroit
Rays.
can do us some favors.
Yeah, the Rays are playing the Orioles. So you have an opportunity here again, if you sweep the series, to possibly jump a couple teams and to make yourself more in the hunt.
Yeah.
But you got to go
Well,
out there and do it.
legitimately in the hunt, because I think right now it's still just like an idea out there.
Oh
Like
yeah,
I still don't realistically think that this team will make the playoffs. However, like I think that we can officially entertain, maybe re-entertain, I should say, the idea of this team being somewhat competitive if they actually go out and sweep Pittsburgh and get back to 500. Again, all the data we have, we mentioned it last show. I don't want anyone to think we're flip flopping. None of the data suggests this is a great baseball team, even a good baseball team. So as of this moment, we don't nothing's changing our opinions drastically. But we're just saying, if you beat Pittsburgh, that's now 6 in a row. All of a sudden, now maybe we can reevaluate just a little bit, just a little bit.
Yeah.
Not saying much, but just a little bit.
We'll take it in, right? You won, what was it? It's 5-1, 3-1, and was it like 7-2, I believe?
Yeah,
Against the
7-2.
Sox?
Which, by the way, that was not ridiculous. That rain delay, that was the ninth inning. We lost the game this season because 4 innings went by
Yeah.
and we couldn't play apparently. And now all of a sudden, in a 7-2 game against the worst team in baseball, where there weren't 50 fans in that building.
No.
There's
Afterwards,
no way there were
if
50
so,
fans
they
in
were
that
all
building.
Jays fans that were there.
Exactly, yeah. And yet they still made them play that game out. I thought that was kind of ridiculous. Fortunately, they won neat and tidy, but like I feel like if the Jays somehow blew that game, and obviously you'd blame yourself if you blowing a 5-run lead in the ninth inning to the White Sox, but still, I think that a little part of you would have been like, that's kind of BS that they had to play that game. Anyways, didn't matter. Mesa went 3 up, 3 down, so who cares? But I thought that was kind of crazy.
No, exactly. And look, I'm going to wrap it up with this. And I'm going to try and tell people as to why we're still not getting fired up and jacked up and like this team's back. Even with this, a 5-run differential in game 1, what was it? A 4-run differential in game 2. You won by 2 in game 3.
Oh, flip flop. It was a 4-run differential in game 1, 5-run in game 2.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
You're 3 games under 500. You're 4.5 out of a wild card spot. You have to jump 5 different. Hold on, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different teams.
5.
And even with all those great run differentials, you're minus 27. Like,
No,
teams
not
are
a good
great.
team. Still not no evidence that says we're a good team.
No.
Still, all the evidence still points that we're not great.
Absolutely. But like we said, take 3 against
That
Pittsburgh.
can change. That can change. That can change a bit.
Different. Well,
That
Rob,
can change a bit.
this is probably one of the most positive pods we've had in quite
In a
a while.
long time. In a long time, my friend.
And as for myself, James Price, Robin Telemon, it's been a blast, buddy. And as for Shane, behind the screen, buddy, thanks so much for always.
GOAT.
And go Jays.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Blue Jays Center on YouTube, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.